All right, so this is why our Messiah allowed himself to be crucified on their symbol. Because he defeated them on their symbol. But the cross was never to be used by us, as a religious symbol. It was never meant to be that. It didn't. That didn't start. The cross didn't start to be used by so-called believers until after Constantine claimed to have seen the sign of the cross in the sky, and then he was told to go and conquer with that symbol. So basically, conquer by force. All right. And so that's when you start seeing the rise of this symbol in the church. All right, so the number 666. All right, so where can we see the number 666? So when we look at all the different names of what the Pope uses and other things inside of the Catholic Church, all of these numbers add up to 666. So we talk about the Vicar of the Son of God as one title. And so when you add all those numbers up, or the Roman numerals or whatever, it adds up to 666. Another title that they use is Captain of the Clergy. It adds up to 666. Another one is Vicar of the Court. When you add that up, the number of the name adds up to 666. A Praetera, which means 10th or 1st of 2, it adds up to 666. The king of the Roman priest, Rex Latina Sakedros, I think that's how you say it. It adds up to 666. The Latin kingdom, because Latin is a language that they use, nobody else could use, a secret language. It adds up to 666. The Italian church, or Italica Ecclesia, adds up to 666. The word apostates adds up to 666. A Roman kingdom adds up to 666. Which comes from I think the Hebrew word romis. Romiti, which is Roman man, adds up to 666. Titan, which is where you get like the Titans of the fallen times or whatever, or the fallen ones, the Titans, which is also translated as Satan, adds up to 666. The Latin-speaking man also adds up to 666. And then another title that they use, Sancta Laudae, Holy Light of God, adds up to 666. So as you can see, all of these titles and numbers and everything that points to this number that we're talking about in the scripture, which he says the number of his name. Pretty much, no matter how you look at it, it's all adding up to the same thing.
So my 2025 just got a whole lot better. I want to explain why. They just rolled out this program. It's called the Economic Relief for 2020.
Pretty much, no matter how you look at it, it's all adding up to the same thing. Cubits, pointing to 666. It's read in Revelation, Antichrist is going to make an image. So Nebuchadnezzar is a picture of the Antichrist. It said, whose height was 80 cubits. What's a score? A score is 20. So when you say 80, that's 60. He said, then the breadth thereof 6 cubits. And he said in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. So he made an image of gold that was 66 cubits, pointing to 666. All right. Then it said Nebuchadnezzar the king sent together the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs. All right. So he names 7 specifically. Just like when we looked at in Revelations, there were 10, but it ended up being 7. That he was going to end up putting in charge. So he named specifically 7, all right? And all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. It said, then the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the province were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, to you it is a command, O people, nations, and language, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, you shall fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. All right. So I want you to see that he's using music to cause, as a signal to fall down and worship. But what of all of that, I want you to see, he names 6 instruments: the cornet, the flute, the harp, the sackbut, the psaltery, the dulcimer. 6 instruments he names. So you got 6 instruments playing music for this image, in front of this image, that is 60 and 6 cubits. So I want the Most High puts all this imagery in there so we can start to see what he's trying to say. And it says, and whoso falleth not down and worship shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. So if you don't do it, it's a threat of death. Therefore, at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the flute, cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. So we know the other part of the story. The three Hebrew boys, they call them, wouldn't worship down, wouldn't bow down and worship. Okay, just like Judah is going to rise up and won't fall down and worship the Antichrist. And it says he's going to start wearing out the saints. But in the midst of all those, our Messiah is going to rise up and begin to fight on our behalf. Just like the 4th image in the flames was seen when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was thrown into the furnace. So I just wanted you to see that this image of the beast thing was shown to us during the Babylonian era. So when we look at the modern day, we look at some of the imagery that the nations use to worship their God and to point to the fact that they believe that their system is going to be the one that rules forever. So the obelisks are erect phallic or penis symbols related to the Egyptian sun god Ra. The 4 sides of the Washington Monument are aligned with the cardinal directions east, west, north, and south. At the ground level, each side of the monument measures 55.5 feet in width, which is equal to 666 inches each side. The height of the obelisk is 555.5 feet, which is equal to 6,666 inches high. All right, same ratio as Nebuchadnezzar's image. Not a coincidence. All right, so how will y'all handle that? Does he mention anything about the obelisk in Scripture? All right, well, let's look at Micah. Micah 5:13 through 15. He said, thy graven images also will I cut off, and thy standing images out of the midst of thee, and thou shalt no more worship the work of thine hands. And I will pluck up thy groves out of the midst of thee, so will I destroy thy cities, and I will execute vengeance in anger and fury upon the heathen, such as they have not heard. So when he starts talking about plucking up the groves and casting down the image, the grove is specifically pointing to the phallus. And so we can look that up later in the Hebrew. Buying and selling. So he said, no man will be able to buy or sell unless he take this mark. Have we seen that before in history? Well, let's see. All right, so after the Council of Nicaea had met and all these things, they kept adding to the rules of the church. All right. And so this was one of the things that they added in, and the popes, during the Inquisition, all this reinforced all these things. You can read them when you begin to study the Inquisition. It said, by the law, following their churches are taken from them, and they are prohibited to perform holy offices either in private houses or churches under the forfeiture of 100 pounds of gold upon all contraveners. following law is yet more severe, which takes from them the power of giving, buying, selling, making contracts or wills, or inheriting their parents' estates, unless they renounce their heretical pravity. There are many laws extant concerning the banishment of heretics. All right, so this is what they used during the Spanish Inquisition. You couldn't buy, you couldn't sell, and they refused to allow all of the money that the descendants of the royal house of David or David, Judah, they refused to allow their children to inherit the wealth of their parents. It was awful. So when you go back and read all that. So what I'm saying is that the system was set up, from 300, 400, AD, and they added to it all the way up into this Spanish Inquisition. Unless you accept their system, you couldn't buy or you couldn't sell. So this is what they did. So this is the same system that we're looking at in the book of Revelation. Same spirit. You're going to do it the way we said do it, or you can't buy or sell. All right. So, even with that being said, so even if, even when you see the way the system is set up now, you've got to bow down if you want a certain amount of success in this world. You got to do it their way. You can't do it their way in their system. Your way in their system, and make it, or be famous, I guess you can say, in their system. All right, so that kind of covers what I wanted to talk about as far as the buying and the selling, the imagery that we looked at. We looked at the ratio of the imagery, the same as Nebuchadnezzar's. Looked at the number of the beast, what the possible symbol could be, because they've used it before. Let me see. And we talked about the comparison between truth and delusion. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this screen and open it up for questions.